Welcome to the Bubblewrap Podcast. I'm Ashley Walker from HSE Advice UK, and we're here to protect your business and make safety pop.
Right, welcome everyone to episode 3.
Yeah.
We're at a completely different setting this time. We're at Morecambe Football Club with a training exercise behind us. So I might get distracted actually throughout the podcast today. But yeah, thanks to Tanya for sharing the venue, because I would never have thought of booking here. And it's lovely.
Nice, good
really
shout.
Spacious,
Good shout.
Really nice team. So yeah. Right, so today
Go on.
we've got a compliance challenge.
Right.
So recently we've not clients of ours, or some in the past that we've been to, but recently I've had some conversations with people, and I've done like a few just ad hoc visits, like, oh, just come and see what you're doing, how you operate. No plans of them coming, us working for them, and it's mostly around fire safety.
Right, okay.
So actually there's a trend in it, the fact that they don't know that they don't comply. And actually we've spoken about this on the past couple of episodes, where you don't know what you don't know. But in terms of fire safety, now this is a really high risk issue.
Yeah, I'd say it's one of the biggies.
I think, most people are aware they have to do a weekly fire alarm test.
Yeah.
They need fire extinguishers. They're the two things that I always get. Oh, well, we've got a fire alarm and extinguishers, we're fine. And actually, they're not really doing the fire checks.
Yeah, so it's being compliant within those two. Just because you've got them doesn't mean you're compliant.
Yeah. And I've also found that I think people assume that their landlord is responsible, not them. And it's usually down to the tenancy agreement or the lease, whether the landlord is responsible or not. But even like our office, for example, it's up to us to do our fire risk assessment, or us as a company, as a tenant, has to have someone come in and do a fire risk assessment in our property. And I still think people assume it's their landlord.
Yeah, I can understand why. If it's not your building, and you've been asked, you need to do some sort of fire check or have some sort of fire compliance in place.
Yeah.
It's understandable why you'd think that your landlord should do the fire risk assessment, but it's where it gets a bit confusing.
Yeah, and if you don't have that fire risk assessment, it makes you very unprepared for complying against the fire reform, and any other regulations. So actually, I've got some stats for you. I'm going to go really boring now.
Go on, give it to us.
Are you ready? Okay, so these are the fire stats from last year, so end of 2023, so September 2023. Okay, so over the past decade, the number of incidents attended by the fire service in England has been on a gradual, kind of fluctuating upward trend.
Right.
Which I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, no.
In the year ending September 2013, there were around 533,000 incidents attended in that year.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, shit. Which had increased by 11% to 592,000 by September 2023.
Wow.
So by 11%.
That's mental.
Well, I was expecting it to go the other way, really. But, the conversations I've had recently, actually, I can see why.
But why do you think that is? What do you think's...
Well, from speaking to people, they don't know.
Yeah.
So one gentleman, lovely guy, manufacturing facility, they'd had health and safety people in before, but I don't know what happened, lost in translation.
Yeah.
He didn't even have a fire logbook to do checks. He said he assumed that when they came in, now and again, that they did them. Obviously they hadn't.
Yeah.
So it can be lost in translation.
Yeah.
And also like an SME, again, if you're not taught, you don't know, and then it just develops from there. But not great, really.
No, it's not great stats. But
just to follow on from that, which I'm slightly concerned about as well, in the year ending September 23, the fire service attended 246,529 false fire alarms.
Wow.
And that's the largest since 2011. So 2011 had 174,362. So that's like nearly double since 2011. And do you know what that was caused by?
Go on.
Due to apparatus. I can never say it right.
Apparatus.
Is it apparatus?
I think.
Apparatus. Well, whatever. Due to the fire alarms, the internal systems.
Right.
So where the fire alarm or the firefighting equipment was in error.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
So, say for example, if you listeners, viewers out there, if you have a look around your building, you've got a fire alarm. Is it serviced by a competent person, you know, a fire maintenance company? There'll be all sorts of fire maintenance companies around the local area. Fire extinguishers. We've spoke about fire extinguishers before because we went to a property recently they were all expired. And not even the servicing expired, was it?
No, they were condemnable, you know.
But again, they didn't know.
No.
Because they weren't doing the checks.
No.
But who told them to do the checks? That's the thing. And again, in our position, we assume people know what they need to do.
Yeah, but that's not always the case, though, is it? As we know.
Yeah, but the worrying thing is that's nearly double over the last 12, 13 years due to them being faulty and just all that time wasted.
I must admit, right, so just on that one with the false alarms, in a previous role, we experienced someone coming in doing a fire alarm test who, a member of staff who doesn't usually do that fire alarm test on that site, didn't know they had to phone up the monitoring station.
Oh, crap.
So
they attended, didn't they?
So they'll just go ahead and, you know, they're being compliant and they're testing the fire alarm as and when they're supposed to in the week. And then 10 minutes later, they got the fire service at the door. Where's the fire?
Oh, shit.
And it was always a bit of a well,
that makes you nervous setting the fire alarm off.
Exactly.
I remember back in the day when right at the start of my career, I had to do the weekly fire alarm test, and you're there like, oh, do I know the code? Oh, do I want to set it off? And you do have to take a minute, like, no, come on. Set it off.
When I first started having to do it, I was like, I had a sheet of paper and I had all the steps written down. I was like, right, have I done that? Have I done that? Have I done that? I've not done that.
Not done that, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite good that it is linked up to a monitoring station.
Yeah.
Because I'm assuming that was like a high risk type.
But it was just a retail sort of type unit.
Okay.
But there was only 2 people there, and it was for out of hours.
Right.
You know, so if something happened out of hours, at least there was some kind of sort of detection. Well, there was detection, but there's some kind of response to that. Yeah. So it was handy from that. It was just a mitigation really on the risk assessment. But it sometimes proved
I know.
to be a bit embarrassing.
Yeah. Well, actually, I did have that recently because I helped run the village hall, LL Village Hall, and we'd not done a fire drill, or they'd not done a fire drill before I came, and we were like, right, we'll book it in, and we're all there, the trustees, and set it off, and the bloody thing wouldn't go back in. So you know, you set it off, then you recode it, and then you have to put your switch back in. Could we get that thing back? Oh my God, we had to ring Dolby Fire to come out and fix it. I was like, oh Christ. So then they were like, well, we're not doing another one. I was like, yes, we are.
That's happened to me before, and again, on in a previous role, there was a lot of them where they'd not been touched in years.
Right.
And then when I eventually come round to test them all, I'm like, right, okay, it's covered in dust and crap. You know, so it wasn't going to work. You pop it and it'd be fine. Yeah. But then when you're trying to reset it, you're like, oh no. And then by sort of the 10th time, you're like, oh, here we go again. Yeah. Right, I'll go and silence the alarm and then do it. Yeah. And
I mean, it just eventually, once you get into it and you do it all the time, then you know like the way it goes in.
Yeah, this one's got to do it at a certain angle.
Yeah, I know.
3 little fiddles and then you get you done. Yeah.
But it's funny though, sometimes I'll go somewhere and they'll go, we do the weekly fire alarm test, and I'll look at the logbook and it just goes, fire alarm panel, okay, fire alarm panel, okay. I'm like, wait, have you tested your call points each? Oh no, we just do it on the panel. I'm like, no, that's not it. But again, it's down to training and stuff.
Yeah, that's it.
But Yeah, but I mean, on the logbook checks, I mean, obviously, every property is different. So some, like, so we go to fostering offices, don't we? Quite a lot of them will have certain leases where the landlord will do certain checks, but then the agency is required to do certain checks. Like, usually you have your own fire extinguishers. You know, if it's a big office, you know, maybe you've got up to 20 people. It's a large office, you'll need fire extinguishers throughout, and it'll be down to the agency. The fire alarm panel, though, we have had an issue recently at a property where they have the office on the ground floor, but then there's flats above.
Oh, right, yeah.
And they're student flats. What the students have been doing, because it's all interlinked, what the students have been doing is, well, actually, I did it back in my day. You know when you put a sock over your smoke detector so you can have hey, I'm not going to lie, you do stuff when you're younger, so they can smoke, but somehow something's happened, so the agency can't do their fire checks. They can't set the fire alarm off on the weekly basis to test it because it sets off the whole thing, and I think it's been installed incorrectly, so the wiring isn't connecting up completely. It's just a mess. Absolute mess.
Doesn't sound great then.
But that one is down to the landlord to fix. But it's investigating that, and it's knowing your responsibilities and what your landlord's responsibilities are. And obviously, if you own your own property, it's up to you.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's completely on you.
Well, yeah. So, like, obviously, you've got your weekly fire alarm test, monthly emergency lighting. I think people generally think that it's just is it 6 monthly service or annual service?
Well, I think you can do both, but I think most people go for annual service. But
you have to get your keys.
Yeah, see, that one, right, so that one threw me when I first started in health and safety and doing those sort of checks and things. I knew you had to do the annual service because I'd seen service sheets. And I'm like, right, okay, that's clearly something we have to do. But no one had told me you need to do flick tests or, you know, the monthly testing the lights. And, you know, when we had the fire risk assessment done, they said, oh, do you do your monthly flip test? Can you show me your log? I'm like,
what are you talking about?
You know, no. And you know, and then that was a learning curve for me. You know, and I'm like, right, okay. And then now I know I need to do it. You know, I'll go and do that now. And they're dead simple to do.
Yeah, they are. And I think also fire door checks, people seem put off by doing them, and actually they're really easy to do. You know, we've got that checklist, don't we, with guidance on it, which is good. But also, I wonder if I've got it with me. I have this fire door, what would you call it, measuring device, so you can measure the gaps. And it's just off eBay, really good. So as you put it into the fire door, it pushes this gauge up and shows you what your gap threshold is. Obviously it's got to be under 4, and the bottom of the door's got to be under 10, but it tells you the gap, and that is so easy. But people think, doing that on a monthly basis, like, why? But see, it depends what industry you're in. So like one sector I've worked in, obviously, like children's care homes, children with autism who very regularly have like behavioural incidents, and they may pull a door, push a door, you know, yank a door, and actually the door can move because there's, you know, they've got considerable strength.
It's just wear and tear, isn't it?
And people don't sort of understand that sometimes. And some people think that once they've installed it, it's good for a year or 2 or whichever. They don't need to check it again, which I'd always say check it monthly just in case, because you never know.
That was something that I used to do, which incorporate both the fire exits as well as sort of internal fire doors. And go around checking them, make sure they're shutting properly, door closers are all good, handles are fastened properly, and you know, you can actually see through the glass. And you know, I've come across a few where someone's walked into it with a coffee and it's covered in coffee, so kind of defeats the object of having, you know, sort of a clear section of the door. So you know, it's things like that, and I mean, that's just so simple to do. Like it's once you know that you need to do them, it should just be part and parcel.
It should be
of your normal monthly you know, checks.
But it's allocating someone to do that who has the time.
That's the problem.
You know, it's all right adding that into someone's job role. You know, if they're like the health and safety rep, yeah, great. Or if they're like a facilities person, yeah, that's great. But it's that training aspect. Yeah. Like even fire marshal training. We've had so many issues recently with numbers of fire marshals. Yeah. Like you might speak to someone and they go, well, we've got one.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you got a team of 90 in that. All different levels, like different units, different stairways. Like how is one person going to...
Where we were the other day, where they had one fire marshal. He just wasn't in the business on that particular day.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
You know, and he was on holiday, and
no
it was
cover.
Yeah, and so there was no deputy, there was no additional fire marshal, no additional support. So
yeah, but I like the St John's ambulance calculator. Have you used it yet?
No, I haven't.
So you can go onto the St John's ambulance website, and they have a fire marshal and a first aid calculator, free to use. And because obviously under the regs you'll need your I'm going on to first aid now, but you need your first aid needs assessment. Yeah. But I treat that the same with fire marshals. So you put in your work areas. So say if you've got different workspace, it's all right if it's just one level office, but say if you've got one unit, an office, different area, you can put in the numbers of people who work in them. You can put any health conditions in that a certain member of staff might have in a different area, and it literally spits out how many fire marshals you need.
Right, okay.
Per area.
That's really handy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've never
and
used
same
it.
with first aiders, yeah.
I've always gone off the sort of, and I don't know if I'm probably guilty of being a bit lacking in the updated information department, but
I've say that, health safety person.
No, it's more. So I've always got, same with first aiders, one per 50. Plus deputy. Yeah. And I've done the same for sort of fire marshals as well, as as long but these places were big sort of offices, big open plan offices, 200 people on that floor. Yeah. So, on that floor with 200 people on it, you've got 4 fire marshals.
Yeah.
Theoretically, 1 per, 8. No, my maths is absolutely...
Where's your maths gone? For 200 people, it's 4?
Yeah, so it was right. You looked at me a bit funny. I was like, no, you threw me off.
No, it's because I'm not going to agree with you, that's why. Why I'm thinking. Yeah. So, fine for fire marshals, first aiders, because if someone becomes ill, that first aider can go over to the other side of the office or whatever. Fire marshals though, if it's a more complicated workplace with different areas, I can't say a rule of 1 to 50. That makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Oh, right, okay.
So to me, it depends on the work areas, how many people are in that area, because especially if you're on multiple floors. Yeah. What if they're based on the ground floor? You're not going to get them to go all the way up to the top floor to come all the way back down.
No, I think this is me not explaining. So these were massive open plan floors.
Oh,
so per floor,
Oh.
So you'd have 200 people on that floor.
Oh, so it's just one area.
Yeah. The massive open plan floor. So you'd have 4 on that floor. Right. So and then I think there was 4 floors. So you would.
Oh, so then the floor again.
Each floor would have 4 fire marshals.
Oh, right, yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, well, that's more than enough, isn't it?
Well, yeah, that's
for holidays.
And that's what I always thought. It was. So you'd have the 4 fire marshals plus deputies. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll do. Yeah. So I think the only thing I want to say as well is fire risk assessors training. Yeah. This is one that's come up recently. So we'll get a new client who wants a fire risk assessment doing, and I'll actively say, okay, do you want our insurance? Do you want our training certificates? Blah blah blah. And only maybe 2 in the last 2 years have actively asked for it. Right. Which is weird. No, because I always say you need to make sure you get that competent person in. Yeah. Because you could get any Tom, Dick or Harry saying, I'm a health and safety consultant or I'm a fire risk assessor. Yeah. I mean, and especially fire, it's a really high risk issue. If anyone is going out there to find a fire risk assessor, make sure you get their certificates and their insurance.
Yeah. But didn't this come up in the office the other day about fire risk assessors, and there's no...
Oh, the training?
Yeah, so you can train to become a fire risk assessor, but for health and safety, you've got NEBOSH, you've got, different levels of NEBOSH, IOS training, there's tons of
health and safety. It's easy to see that ladder. You know, you do your IOSH, working, managing, leading, depending on your role, your NEBOSH certificate, NEBOSH diploma or equivalent.
Yeah.
I went down the master's route instead, but...
Yeah. So there's that, as you say, that ladder of progression there.
Yeah.
And, you know, you could quite easily give your NEBOSH certificate or your so-and-so certificate that's, you know, easily recognised to an employer, and they'll go, all right, yeah, you're definitely qualified. But there's nothing really for fire risk assessors.
Fire confuses me a little because obviously there's, oh, here we go now, I've forgotten the websites. So there's 3 main ones. I've been onto each and they all say different things.
Right.
Now, to me, it's like going back to what do we say is competent.
Yeah.
Is the training and experience and knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, all right, someone's got their fire risk assessors level 6 or whichever training certificate, but if they've never done a fire risk assessment before, I'd still deem them not competent.
Yeah.
But saying that as part of your training, you have to submit fire risk assessments. I know when Tiffany did her training, she had to do her fire risk assessment and submit that in for approval or, you know, review. Whereas when I did my course years ago, my big course, we didn't have to submit anything in for that. I mean, we're talking like 2012, 2013.
Right.
So obviously times have changed since then. But the NEBOSH fire, that'd be a good one.
Yeah, so...
As basic level though, because you need to know your own competency.
Yeah.
So with my training course, I'm more of the health and safety sort of field now, less fire. Where Tiffany's going down the fire route, isn't she?
Yeah.
Now, if I was to do a fire risk assessment somewhere, it wouldn't be a high risk industry because I know my competency level. I know what I've done in the past. I know what my training certificate awards me to do. So sort of low to medium risk environments. I would never do heavy manufacturing or really heavy, massive chemical plants, you know, smaller, you know, maintained manufacturing, you know, smaller chemical store, fine, that's fine. You know, schools, care homes, that's all fine. But I would never go into like the big areas.
Because I think if you don't know your own competency, and you're painting a bit of a target on your own back, really, aren't you? Oh yeah,
because what if you don't identify an issue? Yeah. And something happens. I mean, shit, that would be my worst nightmare in the type of work that we do.
Your name's all over a document that says,
saying I'm competent for something. But I found when you try and benchmark yourself against other companies, like pricing and different things. But when I go on some websites, they'll say they're a fire risk assessor and they'll put down like their training and it's this bog standard e-learning bullshit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you can't be charging people to do a fire risk assessment if you've not got you're not competent.
No.
Not that I'd ever give them a ring. Hiya, don't think you're competent, mate. but that scares me.
Yeah, I think that's what I was getting at was, so there are plenty of training courses out there. You know, Tiffany's done one, as you said, you've done them. I'm yet to do one, and you know that's something I'm considering, seriously considering. But there isn't one that's so recognisable as NEBOSH is for health and safety, or something is for sort of food safety. You know, there's those different sort of really niche that everyone recognises. Okay, that's you're competent. You know what you're doing, or you're qualified. But I think. It's something it's a bit strange. I know there's a register of registered fire risk assessors that I think local fire services hold. And there's a website you can go to. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I know, we should have written it down on the website because you can go onto a register there and it shows approved fire risk assessors and their competency level. Yeah. And I keep saying we need to go onto that register but again, we don't want to do high risk, so it's not as, but then we can deem ourselves as competent on that. It's just getting around to doing it. I really need to do that. Make a note. But sorry, now I'm getting distracted with writing bloody actions for myself. But it's knowing the right advice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, I just want to end this podcast on a few takeaways for people listening. I want everyone to double check that they've got a fire risk assessment for their property. If you've got a commercial property, rent, own, whichever, double check your lease, but no doubt you'll be liable.
Yep.
And you'll be responsible for making sure that fire risk assessment's done. Fire alarms, there are different levels of fire alarms, but just make sure you've even got smoke detection, because some we've been to in the past haven't even got smoke detection, fire extinguishers and emergency lighting. Yeah. I think those 4 takeaways at first. But also, away from the business side is your domestic property, your house. Just check your smoke detector works.
Oh, yeah.
Because most people don't.
No.
I recently went to my mum's and I saw her smoke detector light. Never noticed it before, just haven't. It's like, oh, why is it got that weird light? Oh, it's been doing that for years. I was like, how have I never noticed that? Turns out it's not been working for years, so I had to go to Costco and get some smoke detectors, just so I feel at ease to know that she's got smoke detectors.
Yeah, I must admit, yeah.
Sometimes you just don't think.
I need to test mine.
Oh.
No, I've not tested mine in a while.
Have you not?
No, so.
I test mine regularly when I burn something.
We've got a log burner on our living room.
Ah.
So, you know,
nice.
if there's a reason to check, it's that.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
A couple of times I've fallen asleep downstairs on the sofa with the log burner on, and I'm thinking, that wasn't great. I'm
going to go into something else now. I saw an article yesterday about a dryer burst into flames because they'd left it on overnight and wasn't in it was an Airbnb property.
Oh, right.
And they put the dryer on overnight, but had left, and the whole place up in flames. Oh, no. Never leave your dryer on unattended.
No.
But yeah. Right, well, thanks very much.
No, thank you.
Great episode. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed our episode, please subscribe to our channel. All links to our social media are in the description below, and if you have any questions, please leave a comment or message us. Bubblewrap, to protect your business.